Today was pretty fabulous. We got some rain after lots of weeks and weeks of sunshine. Eventually we'll hate the sunshine and just want rain. So my poem today is about what's been happening in Northern Alberta. What the Blazes. All winter long, I yearn for gentle spring. With snow now gone, I fear for summer's blaze. But sadly, when spring finally arrives, she's choked in summer's scorching rays. Alberta's forest fibers favor May. When Arctic winds, her drought intensifies. Before slap flows and trees are tinder dry, we, in dereliction, our campfires ignite. These embers speed on searing winds to parch brush and steepled trees, to thwart firefighters with their ferocious flames and brand a wound as large as PEI. The UCP left fire crews short-handed when their government cut rap attack and fired the repellers who quench remote blazes, halting their explosion into gigantic blasts. Abandoned, we Albertans prepare to vacate with kids, documents, and PJs packed, with pets in carriers safely stowed, with stores of food and water loaded. 30,000 reluctant leave unguarded homes. From safety, they view their house security and watch, astonished, brazen looters take advantage and exploit their misery. While in Grand Prairie, rancher Billy Lowen, shuttles concerned for strangers threatened livelihoods, shuttles their spooked cows in his cattle liner. At his ranch, he soothes them with his cachet feed. June, July, and August prepare to pounce with greater El Nino heat forecast. Western Canada singes in the crosshairs of poor planning and climate change denial. We're desperate. We want our rains again. We want the sweetness of our pretty little May. We hate this dangling dread each summer brings. We want to wish this ever-present threat away. Thank you very much. A little lighter now. Privileged character. When I was too young to know what those words meant, and I wanted something I wasn't meant to have, that I had no idea was beyond my station, Grandma christened me a privileged character. This naming occurred most often at what teasingly my granddad called Grandma's monthly hen parties, although no chickens ever did attend. Each month, we'd join those farm wives whose baking best upon the table spread. But when I asked for something yummy, Grandma's painful words upset my tummy. I knew they meant that I'd been bad, but I had no notion of what I'd done. But Grandma's ladies did, and frowned, their chastising rivulets dark across their brows. Into adulthood, I would repeatedly be taught the silent etiquette of what's meant for me or not. Like that day Granddad's sarcasm, I understood when those old dames had pecked me till I bled. Now I'm as old as those farm wives I knew, and I've learned the ancient secrets of those hens. So I sprinkle them about like fairy dust, sharing them with everyone I can. Thank you.
So today is Schizophrenia Awareness Day, and that's why my family and I are all wearing Schizophrenia Awareness Day t-shirts, because this afternoon we walked at the Galt and we're raising awareness. Okay, my first poem. The deafening din of the nighttime agitation. My friend so-and-so, she is feeling suicidal again. My husband so-and-so, he is feeling suicidal again. Thus begins this nightly ritual, so-and-so and so-and-so, talking endlessly on the phone about such and such. Life's ebbs and flows, the very high highs and the very low lows. About how life has done them oh so wrong, how they listen intently to each other in an effort to keep strong. Schizophrenia, the elephant in the room, causing so much strife, it'd make anyone want to crawl back into the womb. Can you hear that? Can you see this? Or maybe we're just crazy misfits. How is one to exist when all the senses are constantly bombarded by things that simply do not exist? 20 plus years, and he still hears that very real voice telling him, if life is so hard, why doesn't he just hang himself? 30 plus years, and her visions are very real, that aliens live amongst us, and only she is privy to such private detail. And so, to ensure restful sleep, handful of prescribed antipsychotics, antidepressants, and the occasional sleeping pill are eagerly consumed in a gigantic heap. Taking so many medications you'd think would make one very ill. These, however, help one not to feel, so that the next day, everything will be more chill. These medications continuously heal the wounded brain, burdened with the grind of the daily strain. Sleep well, so-and-so and so-and-so. You know you are loved by all of us, though. Tomorrow, awaken to a brand new day, again. Tomorrow, awaken to try this thing called life, again. Tomorrow, awaken with lots to say to the friends, family, and community who hold you closer day by day. And this one was written 23 years ago when I was in my 20s. It's called Self-Destruction. Every morning she waits to ride that bus, her constipated waif-like appearance emitting the sickly perfume of death. She hacks and coughs, warning signs, ignoramus. Her dulled senses match that expressionless face of a habitual ritualist. Her sleepy, malnourished fingers fumble carelessly, searching her purse for this much-needed laxative. Shoving one end of the nicotine roll into her droopy chapped lips, she carelessly ignites the other end, while her Medusa-like locks play temptress to the flickering flame. Ignorantia. She inhales, a long, deep, penetrating breath, toxins. Her body relaxes, suffocating. She smiles. A ghastly sigh escapes her lip. She is flooded with the warmth of her pseudo-comforter, ignorant, sunking in, blowing out, inhaling, exhaling, absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. The bus arrives a few minutes too early. Hastily, she discards her habit, and she stumbles aboard. Ignorar. And now just a really quick fun one. The cat, silky, shiny, gleaming, purring, dreaming, master of himself, master of his environment, seductive, secretive, the philosopher. Thank you.
I'd like to read you, first of all, from something about my favorite hockey player, which plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and right now they are not playing in the playoffs, which they didn't even make the playoffs, but this article is called 500, and I'll read you it, and it was written on February 15th of 2022. What was I doing when Sydney scored? I would only be thankful to see more. The puck was on his stick, then into Hart's net. 500 goals or one sure bet. The puck was scooped out of the goal and his stick entered into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Time stops and his teammates hug him. What a game. Only the second Penguin to do this. What a fate. You respect Sid, whether you admire him as I do or hate. To win that game, that is a must, and teammates helping out the cause is in them we trust. Being a fan, the building became electric from this #1 fan, eccentric. Please score many more, oh how Sid I adore. A career is not built in a day. Trust me, I know it is definitely worth the pay. I am proud of the Penguins, especially for the 5 cups. Like many hockey fans, I started from the group level of pups. Seeing that game, I would not trade it for more. Oh, Sydney, how I adore. Please keep me as your #1 fan. I know that you definitely are the #1 man. Don't look back, just keep on that track. Thank you. And now this one goes out to, other than my wife, the most wonderful lady that I have ever known, my mother. And it's called Ode to Lorraine. Oh, what a wonderful mother you were to me. It made me happy thinking you were in our family. To see you suffer made me sad, but to see you smile made me glad. On July 24th, 2012, I lost my best friend, but knowing your death, you made it right to the end. They say when your time is up, you will never know, but as the years go, the adversity you faced made you grow. You wanted Veronica and I to marry on August 9th, 2014. You'll be in our hearts, and it will be happy, very, very. You were a legend, a one of a kind. To know you're at peace, I will never mind. I think of you all the time. As a mother, you were all mine, all mine. I hope that you're happy with Veronica and I. To think of you, I often cry. I always wanted to become a cop, school resource officer, to be precise. Sometimes I think of how you were really nice. Nobody could ever replace you. I cannot wait until August 9th, 2014 to say I do. You'll be with us on that special day. What more can I say? Except you were a legend, a one of a kind. Having you as a mother, I will never mind. In case you're wondering, I wrote this a long time ago. Thank you so much.
Poem in Your Pocket Day is something that started in New York City in 2002, and then it spread across the United States. And in 2016, I think it was adopted by the Canadian League of Poets, so it's National Poem in Your Pocket Day in Canada too. Well, I didn't know about it until April 28th this year, and it was the day before. It was April 27th, so I missed it by a day. So this is called Poem in Your Pocket Day. And for those of you who are or were Sesame Street fans, you'll know what I mean when I say it's brought to you by the letter P. Yesterday was Poem in Your Pocket Day. And as I ponder this, I find that I prefer to picture pockets full of poems. But which pockets and what size? One of those with slanted opening in the front of a pair of jeans, or a shirt pocket with pen points poking out, or the pockets always sat upon where men so often put their wallet, or these days a phone, or perhaps a pocket tucked inside a woman's well-packed purse. This matters, you see, for a poem is a precious thing and must be placed with care, not scrumpled up on paper scraps pushed out of sight like the wrapping of a chocolate bar soon to be swept into the trash. A poem must be neatly penned, its paper folded properly so as to precisely fit the pocket, planned and prepared for its reception, poised to be pulled out with pride for anyone's perusal. And plainly, this applies to poems plural, dependent on the poets taking pains in their production. So, with Poem in Your Pocket Day, I perceive much must be considered, for a poem is a powerful thing, whether playful, poignant, or provocative. And I profess my prowess lies more in prospective depiction than in upfront presentation. Thus, my pockets must stay poemless, for though my plans are plentiful, I've now missed the preset day through prolix procrastination, and must now take a pass on pocket poesy. Now for something completely different. Just in case there's somebody that might not know what tinnitus or tinnitus is, it's that awful hissing, ringing, buzzing sound that so many of us develop in our ears as we age. This is called silence of sorts. When tinnitus is ever present, its volume always turned up high. Silence is not attainable. One man wisely counseled, think of it as listening to the song of the universe. A lovely reframe in theory, but not so easy to achieve. But at times, I'm able to push back the incessant hiss out of the focused beam of my awareness, and then I sit, senses open, feeling aliveness all around me. The air, a cool caress on my bare arms. The floor sturdy beneath my feet, my ears acknowledging the household sounds, my nose, as always, sadly blocked, my eyes closed to outside stimuli, my breath, as always, on autopilot, my heart beating in keeping with its own instruction manual. And in what for me now passes for silence, I am content. Content just to be still, content just to be. And this last one, you will certainly know by the end of this that one of my big loves is doing family history and genealogy, and I've been doing it for years, and when I started, there was nothing online. There was no online. When I started, it involved lots and lots of sitting in libraries, winding microfilms and going through microfiche and books and writing letters and waiting months for an answer from Australia or whatever. And one day I was playing around with words, and I found out that genealogist is an anagram of gee, I sat long, and ancestors is an anagram of no traces. So this is called When I Have Gone. When I have gone to glory, crossed the veil, passed away, I hope I'll find a big reunion of all my many kin, those whom I remember, and those I've known by photograph and story, or just by name and date alone. I'm curious about my forebears. There's so much I want to know about the lives they lived, the mysteries just hinted at in what is left behind, what they were really like, I hope that we can gather to celebrate the history and her story that make up our continuing tale. I'd ask my grandmother to tell me again about her growing up, since when she told me once before, I was too young, bored, and inattentive. I'd ask my father's uncle how it came to be that his widowed mother got that black-rimmed telegram in October 1916, saying that he, her eldest son, had been killed in action on the battlefield in France, just days after his cousin and only son was killed in that same place. But great-uncle Charles Edward was very much alive a few years later, living in New York City, where his young daughter moved across the pond to live with him again. I want to know what really happened on that battlefield in France, and how it was his daughter, so soon after docking in New York, was married to a neighbor, a man nearly her father's age. She bore 2 sons, was widowed, then one day shut all her windows tight, turned on her oven's gas, and ended her sad life. And then Eddie's younger brother, gassed in World War I, left his wife and 4 young children, and using another brother's name, married an unsuspecting bride, who soon was once more single, her so-called spouse in prison for the crime of bigamy. And then I'd like to ask anyone who'd answer how they'd lived with such large families in places we deem too small today, and how it was to live where everyone knew your name, and how it felt to walk for miles each day just to get around. I'd ask them how they coped with all the changes, the car, the telephone, the airplane, and electricity. My great-grandfather in Fulham blew up his family flat above his shoe shop as he tried to light the gas lamps. Fortunately, all survived, and he was only slightly burned. He had a brother just down the road who took the family in. My grandmother was born there before her family home could be restored. And I'd ask my great-great-great-great-grandfather Thomas who his parents were and if he came from the gentry whose surname he bore. And then my great-grandmother Jane. I want to know who it was got her with child and cast her out to fend alone, and where her baby was until he married at 21, far from the place where he'd been born. And what became of Jane once she had given birth. Then I'd ask a one-time fiery preacher what had made his faith so strong, and if or how it changed with death, and did he go through pearly gates? So many questions to be asked, more stories to be told, tales of sorrow and of joy, of tragedy, coincidence or luck, and some, I'm sure, of humor, fun, and play. I do so hope that when I've left this life, I'll find my family gathered round, keen to share their memories, somewhere, somewhen, somehow. Thank you.
My daughter's coming home this weekend for her brother's wedding, and that's a happy weekend. But in December, we buried our oldest son, his father and I buried him. We're not married anymore, but we buried him. And so before the happy day starts tomorrow, I want us to take a little time to talk about Chris. I wanted a short winter. I got 4 months of snow covering the ice, a mess so deep and treacherous I cannot walk in it without a stick, unless good citizens follow the rules and sweep the walks clean and clear. Spring came, but it didn't melt the deepest potholes. Black ice expands in the darkest places, like a spike cracking the river to make a fishing hole. Horror etches spider cracks across my soul. What's below the surface? My grief, my love, my hopes for you now flow like a river the sun never reaches. I undid the straps of your stroller and lifted you up. set you down on a path strewn with golden leaves. Your father and I watched you run in front of us, laughing at your freedom. We thought you would go on forever in your red-laced boots and striped blue cap that I still have. You stopped smiling when you got sick, but you never stopped climbing mountains, paths. Now I carry you with me everywhere, like I did when you were small. I imagine you still climbing a mountain path when I try to undo time. I try to give you life again. They made a boundary at the top of the world, where the water splits west and east, the Great Divide, they called it. I learned about it in school, and so did you. When you were a kid, you told me you were living on the wrong side of it, that we should never have made you leave our peach trees and blackberry bushes, that the beach at Park Lake was a pale imitation of a real lake, let alone the ocean. That just being able to see the mountains on a clear day isn't as good as being cradled by them in every direction. Maybe it was because you were born on the other side of the Great Divide that you never felt home, that the prairie was home on the prairie. You seemed almost like yourself again those nights we messaged in October. After 6 years of hardly talking, we were catching up. Just beginning, I thought. I told you I was sorry your birthday present got there late. I told you I had been sick. You seemed to understand. I almost told you that I was coming to see you as soon as the doctor said I could, that I would find a way into that valley, but I was afraid that you would stop talking again. I wasn't sure you wanted to be found. I told you I didn't think that you would get the help you needed on the east side of the Rockies, that it would be too hard to argue your case again on this side. But you never told me what was happening to you on the other side of the Great Divide, that they were poisoning you with neglect. I thought they were taking care of you, but they left you alone to die in a rented room and didn't want to answer my questions after they found you 2 weeks gone. They said it was because I am the younger parent. Aren't most mothers the younger parent? Maybe they just don't want to talk, they don't want to hear from others, especially the mother of a man they left alone to die when all he wanted was to get better and find a job, maybe make music again. I thought you were saying hello, but you were saying goodbye. You'd been silent before, but it was different this time. My messages weren't getting through. I couldn't feel the light that tied me to you since before you were born. There was no one to tell. The dread was mine alone, until the big cop with a gentle voice and 2 victim services ladies knocked on my door when I was baking bread on a Friday night. I knew why they were looking for me. So we buried you on the darkest day of Advent, praying for the sunlight in the middle of a blizzard. I didn't scream at your funeral. I didn't fight with your father. We stood together, lit your baptismal candle, gave you back to God, and thanked him for the gift of you. Then we put you down to sleep in a space with a mountain view. And you know, on a clear day, you can see Chief Mountain from the cemetery. Now, before you got sick, when you were a teenager, with a smirk on your face and your tongue in your cheek, you said you would take care of me when I got old. Maybe put me in a home because you thought I wasn't very good at taking care of myself. We both laughed at that. But I thought, maybe you were right. And why did we laugh? The hell they put me through mortally wounded you. I'll forgive them for what they try to do to me, but I have no right to give them a pass for killing you. At night, the horror rolls right over me like a blanket they put across the dead. I try to sleep, but the dreams, they don't come. I want to hold my baby again. Then I remember. You were born and you died on the other side of the Great Divide. Thank you.
My next one is called In Response to one of my exes who just decided that she was going to lie about the abuse she put me through. So she said I was cold. The last few weeks of our relationship, I was hurt, confused, let down by my expectations of you. The first night, we went to a place I adored. We met somebody and she tried to tell them my trauma. My story wasn't mine when she was around. Thorns being stabbed into my heart. I thought she was better than this, torn apart in broken pieces. When I told her it was wrong, she got mad, she got upset. But it's my story, isn't it? She made me a villain to validate her abuse. So when I am cold, there is a reason. Thank you. The next one's called After the Rape. I was sexually assaulted in January, so I decided to rate this. I fear I am only beautiful with my clothes off, scattered on the floor when I am most vulnerable. I fear this is why he loves me, naked and bare, vulnerable to his touch, his voice, the way he touches my skin. Maybe I am only good for what's under these fabrics that he tears off my body as he whispers that he loves me. But does he? Or does he just love me for my body?
This one's a poem called Muffins, about a cat. Cat from Lethbridge, actually, who moved up to Grand Prairie briefly when I was there. And I wrote this one April 17th, 2023. Si's family had a cat for just a day, a beach ball Persian that lived 20 years when pampered by a loving Lethbridge gay before he shipped her north, dispelling fears that his beloved cat would die alone, set loose to die a matted gutter stray, to choke on a discarded chicken bone. Perhaps it helped her owner anyway, to find relief when on his dying bed, to think a part of him would still live on, his full-formed love, alive though he was dead. I hope he never knew his cat had gone. I hope he died imagining her well. Years later, in a sunny window's light, he may have found it timely. Who could tell? He may have found her timely death all right. This one's called Hello, and I wrote it May 23rd, 2023. I still remember when I saw my first and only real macaw. It was when I was just a teen. She was the brightest bird I'd seen. She lived within a downtown store and did her job to guard the door in an effective, friendly way. Each time I visited, she'd say, "Hello." She said it every time she'd see a visitor, so not just me. She loved attention, which she got a lot of, since she talked a lot to draw in people at the door. I bet they visited much more to see and hear that friendly bird pronounce her one and only word, "Hello." I really loved her when I heard her parrot voice pronounce her word, the way she welcomed company, the way she always welcomed me. I felt so bad to hear her say her word to try to make me stay when I would turn to leave, since she pronounced it loudly, desperately, "Hello, hello, hello." And that's it.
My first poem is a kind of a rewrite of one that I've done a while ago, but I don't think I've ever read it here. It's an argument with a woman who lived in the 1300s. Her name was Julian of Norwich. She was a holy woman from the small city of Norwich in England. She lived in a little room that was attached to the church there as an anchorite, and she would live alone in prayer and silence, but she had a door that was a window that was opened up to all of the people in town. And so she became like the town's counselor available there. She is well known for a particular phrase that you'll see talked about even now. Her phrase was, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." This is my poem about it. Hey, Julian, is that really your name anyway? Awfully suspicious that it's the name of the church you lived next to. So is Julian just another name for anonymous? And is anonymous just another name for another brilliant woman? Anyway, Julian, did you really say that? All shall be well? What? Were you on drugs? Hypnotized? Or just mentally unbalanced? I mean, just look around. Watch the news, for crying out loud. Hate to break it to you, but things are definitely not well. Black woman killed in her home, shot by the police, sent to see if she was all right. Kurds abandoned by allies to armies just itching for a little ethnic cleansing. Sexual slavery rings. Cages for migrant children seeking asylum. Opioid crisis, climate crisis, fentanyl crisis, housing crisis, cries us, cries us. All shall be well. Try that line on a woman who just lost her child to a bullet. Are you kidding, or are you nuts, woman? I am not impressed. Yet through the ages you say, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. It does have a nice rhythm, doesn't it? You know, deep down, I don't think you were nuts. You lived during the Black Plague, which killed 1 out of the 3 people standing around you. The plague might have killed your own children and spouse, and that's why you ended up living on the side of the church, never leaving that tiny room. An anchorite with window open to listen to all who came to tell you their heartbreak, asking you to pray with them, to pray for them, for comfort, for strength. Though you didn't get around much, the evening news came to you. Hour after hour, day after day, year after year, through that tiny window to the world. You knew how much we hurt, how much we suffer, how much we need. Some things just never seem to change. All will be well, and all will be well. Well, I guess I can hope. Maybe someday I can believe it. After all, some days underneath it all, I find myself wordless, watching a magpie watching me, seeing the tenderness of an open-hearted soul, feeling thank you arise from my bones, and I hope, and I watch. The tension of the opposites, I hold it all, waiting for a creative resolution. A creative revolution? Creative resolve. My creative resolve, my resolve to be creative, to think thoughts never thought before, to create in the middle of so much destruction. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. I hold it, I create, I hope, I watch, I resolve to be creative while watching for that creative revolution. And just perhaps, all shall be well. May it be so. And this one I wrote a couple of weeks ago. Who is Wonder Woman? Well, I'll tell you. Who's Wonder Woman? Any woman or man, any human who will get up again after a well-deserved and well-needed rest, to make supper again, to go back to work until better work comes again, to change the bandage again, to change the diaper again, to change the law again, to change the world again. Wonder Woman is any human who loves and loves and loves again and again and again until we're all Wonder Women in our wonder-filled world. What does your cape look like? Mine is purple and gold. It's very old and very worn, and it's very, very beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, this one is titled Heart Cook's Brain. My heart was formed when my mind could no longer be my sole guide, when my soul could no longer be denied for a companion to confide. Brain's weapon, logic polished with shining knowledge, heart's tenacity, willed with nothing but sheer fantasy, melting away my then reality. Love and leverage, connecting an organ-bordered bridge, veined and ridged, sinew-torn and rimmed. Multitudes of cells, infinite prisons, infinite rooms for prison mates. Your weak will as you punch and pound, I hear as you try to escape through your sound, threatening to break loose from my ribcage. All the while your command spell-cast movements like a battle-beaten frontline mage, cardiac, too withered, too weak to attack, formed with deniable fact, polar opposites, mortal love. I stare at my ceiling's maze-bubbled, rough outer edge, wishing they could whisper all my thoughts leaking through my head, relinquishing all the things I should have said. Love melts logic, frying self-made walls to guard an unkept heart, glass-crafted, continuous romantic viruses contracted. As I stare at my ceiling's rough outer edge, filling my lungs fire of the song, I long for rain as my heart cooks my brain. And then my next one is called Heart to Heart. Heartstrings pull, taunt and tight, whispering my tragedies, fearful but right. Sightful souls wither in the dark, unrelenting to connection, preferring to be alone and stark. If only we could speak our soul's truths as easily as I read the words on this page. If only we could simmer out our contagious rage. Let me speak what has been spoken thousands of times before. Let me paint a picture of my mind so that you might comprehend what lies behind my placid mask, so that you might foretell my future by understanding my past. Written in me, in my very being, lies every story ever told, lies tales of fierce women, of warrior trolls, when the mountains first cracked, when time first rolled, of water with liquid gold, stories and myths built to form in human molds. When we talk, when we walk, we must understand that our souls are recycled light. They are meant to be bright, a shining beacon glowing at night. So when we believe we are not enough, when we break down our spirits, making them diminished and rough, you forsake the years of evolution, the thought that went into the making of you, the people that sacrificed and survived for you. Only for you to say that you aren't enough, that their lives weren't enough. So when I say that what I speak has been spoken thousands of times before, I speak the truth because I know that humans crave and always craving more. So I make a stand, I write these words, polishing and sharpening them like a mighty sword, like tales of knights battling and protecting their lords. I wish we could speak our souls as easily as I read the words on this page and have soul-to-soul conversations as we have heart-to-heart confrontations.
This first poem is kind of in the realm of fantasy, dreamland, and so I employ the good graces of Morpheus, who is the Greek god of dreams, of course. to get me into my poem. Okay. Sleep. Gateway to the unconscious cosmos, where Morpheus reigns supreme. Come, let Morpheus take your hand. Tumble together like two dice tossed across the tapestry of dreams, weft and warp of memory and illusion. Leave will and inhibition on the far shore of consciousness, powerless to intervene in sublimation's peep show of uncensored image, where you are audience and exhibit. And Morpheus whispers in your ear, we must this night to Salisbury fly, for tomorrow is the solstice. Cascade through the DNA of dreams, kaleidoscopic skein of your ancestral memory, until you come across Stonehenge, megalithic timepiece, and some say center of the cosmos. Pass beneath the lintels of its prehistoric pillars, dark against the pre-dawn sky, to join the white-cloaked druids in the center of the sacred stones, who await silently the solstice. Behold, the blazing sun cracks fire across the skyline, ascending slow between the portals of the granite clock, until, for one nano moment, the perfect circle of the sun fits perfectly the perfect square of stones, shooting a spear of pure white light to strike the exact center of the center stone, shattering darkness, vibrating earth with that primordial pulse that held all matter in it before exploding into universe. Cleansed by light, recreated, you know that you stand at the beginning and the end of time, where all is forever one. And you know it is said, an old life must be forfeited for new. Thus looking back, you see nothing but for Morpheus fading, and yesterday's reverie disappear into dawn. Awake.
So the names, in case you didn't catch it, is Bell, James Bell. The title of this poem is called Invocation. It's a little bit of a sight pun. In other words, it's spelled I-N, hyphen, and vocation. So it might suggest that I think of my vocation as being a poet, but I don't. I drove truck before I retired, did janitorial, did groundskeeping, all the exciting stuff, machine operating, not much else. Groundskeeping, did I mention that? And of course, the guy who I paid to teach me poetry at university, one time, big class, he assigned a poem. It was something like the fundamentals of poetry. And before the class started, he came up to me and said, I want you to read the poem, and then what I'm going to be saying about the poem is this isn't poetry. You don't write poetry. And I paid him for the privilege. Now, if you bother to listen to me in the future, or if I bother to show up, you might hear what my response was, and whether it was verbal or just in thought. So I'm definitely not a poet. I'm not sure whether I write poetry. If you run screaming for the doors, I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to judge myself for it, because I'll be reading some stuff, that some of you folks won't like. So my introduction is a whole lot longer than the actual poem. I'm only going to do one. Apparently I've got something like 5 minutes, and I'm going to be mercilessly brief. So again, this is called Invocation. Black Knight in shining armor rides again on the Arabian seahorse, Pegasus, with Algol whelmed in a swirled nautilus, fish in a casket, winking now and then. This demigod, half Greek, half Saracen, whom the Arabian Nights scrawled down for us, the only image not idolatrous, rides, rabbit-mounted, pose equestrian. So these bare bones of images survive. Above all else, the Pleiades, busy hive, dredged from murk darkness, twinklingly alive. Here, Rembrandt, you whose pictures loom post-quaint, ooze from self-portraits, blotted with time's taint, reach into chiaroscuro, I the paint. And that's all I'm going to subject you to, all I'm going to belabor your ears with this time. Maybe next time we'll meet again. Take care, children.
Good evening, everyone, and let's start spring again today is what I was thinking. It's a beautiful day, and I have a poem about that. It's called Being Green. Wrote this in Victoria. It's an old one. I am the incipient of the earth, feathering out across the landscape every spring to salvage the bog of it all. Sometimes rising rudely as lilies, sometimes curling up like a wrung-out silk blouse, just waiting to be shook free, to become the leaves of the tree peony. Shot through with chlorophyll creep, the slow silence of unfurling slowly becomes a scent of cucumber and vanilla extract. So dense, you start to understand bees and their intent. That's it. Thank you. And this is one I read at the other Owl location. And I think sometimes Teri has this in mind when she, in her introduction. It's called Open Mic. It takes courage to sign up. Readers head to the front of the room toward the upright podium to rest their poem and their unsteady wrist bones on. But a live microphone lies in wait, sizzling, sensing, and being bathed in your own sound is an oddly unpleasant shock, like your breath magnified and blown back in your face. Your lips buzz with recognition. So some tinker with modulation, others tremble with nerves at the sheer noise of their own audacity in letting fly this portion of self. Quietly hunted wisps of thought, now projected and then returned as loudspeak. Talk about an entrance. We can mull long and alone to make a poem. So naturally, eventually, we want to put it out there and go for broke, stride it bravely into the dangerous minds of capricious others. Most need some wooing, but are curious as well, because voyeurs all, we are never full. At the end of the performance, however it lands, polite applause blankets any boredom, sneers, or awe, but with rare right words, people will light up, stand smug, hand in glove, and say, yes, feeling satisfied, addressed. The right cadence can cradle us in mute joy. Some close their eyes to better receive the ancient hum sailing into their open mind to become a story, a new vista, a shudder of feeling, or a vague sensibility newly defined. We all long to sink into the hands of a teller, so full heads listen, upturned, with a nod inside, longing to be lifted magically like a child and carried quietly somewhere else outside the confines of their own restless minds. Attunement to voice begins in utero, tying us before birth to an other. So by hearing her voice and feeling the vibrato, we float in the timeless fold of being human, our first sound at birth, a cry for our mother. When we bring our poems, they are our luxurious own, singular voice, hovering among the din, wanting light and air and to feel less alone. So hearing our name, we step up to the podium, lean in with electric lips to the bristling wand that lifts our words up off the page and sends them far. It helps to imagine a warm, swinging door.
Okay, I just have one that I completed this afternoon, but it probably will need a little fine-tuning yet. But it's called The Raven and the Hummingbird. A raven call came from a cold stone wall outside my self-imposed cell in this broke-down palace, where I was shackled with my own chains, broken and rearranged, pulling hard back on my own reins while a heavy fog had settled on my brains. I longed to go down by the river I knew so well from the days of my youth, to frolic again in the wild grasses and watch the trout lazing in the pools, to sing again with the joy of living and dance in the rain as I once did before the world became so unforgiving. The raven asked, "Are you open or are you closed? Do you remember la vie en rose? Are you ready today to plead for mercy on your wretched soul and its obstinate ways? Or will you continue down your ill-fated pathway, only digging yourself into a deeper hole?" But my stubbornness dug in its heels, my wickedness ran for cover, and my heart was suddenly full of dread. This might be my final hour. It was then I wondered what my final thoughts would be when the raven called me to the leave the shady grove. Did I leave the tap running in the tub or a burner lit on the stove? Did I take the garbage out and sweep the floor? Hell, I don't even do my taxes anymore. I have so many things left to do, but no longer keep a list. You see, I leave these things unattended, so when my time comes, I can always ask for just a little bit more. But life is short, and time is fleeting, so if I were to have but one last wish, it would be to see a hummingbird in the wild once more.
Greetings, humans! It is I, Horus, drone 84,156,321. As a drone, I don't do much. So when it comes to reality, sometimes I'm a bit out of touch. But in case you were wondering just exactly what I do, I will give you a brief run through. I mainly hang out in the hive, and my sisters feed me jelly or honey. It's a good thing I get it for free because I have no money. I have the heart of a wanderer. So unlike my brothers, I go out of the hive and go explore. And sometimes I see curious things. One day I watched a dog. Then he dragged his ass across the lawn, hoping he got all the poop off, hoping he didn't have a Klingon. Another time, I seen some dude pissing into the wind. And you don't need to be a poet or a rocket scientist to figure out what happened. In a never-ending quest to have perfect fruit and vegetables, you humans use pesticides and herbicides. And although you don't see the immediate results, to us insect folks, landing on things you have sprayed is a bit like slowly committing suicide. When the hive gets too hot, all of the workers and us beat our wings. It takes a lot of us and some time to cool down things. And when it gets too cold, we all shiver and shiver. We quiver and quiver. Sometimes you can feel it in your spleen. Sometimes you can feel it in your liver. Oh, and this is where I go off, do ad-lib, but I'm not going to do the ad-lib part. It's a little over crazy, kooky stuff that really isn't suited for this venue. Anyhow, my main purpose is to mate with the queen. It sounds pretty easy, but it isn't. Every drone wants her. Every drone will fight to the death for her. I will use my jaws to sever the heads, wings, and other parts of my opponents. My legs, as useless as they look, will help me savage the other gents. Before we come to the climax, we get to the part of me getting prepared. I've got to clean myself. No queen will want some dude who's covered in dirt and honey. I remember when I was younger and didn't have this big belly. No need to worry, though. It's the gas tank to the love machine. I've got to clean my antennas as well. Ooh, I like that. Actually, I really like that. That's the spot. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Okay. My eyes are not what they used to be, but thank the bee gods I can still see. In the hive, we have iTunes. You need a little bit of music to help because time can drag on forever, and other times it can move so quick. We cut a deal with Apple. We give them a bit of honey. For us drones, we like the Bee Gees staying alive. We honeybee drones don't have stingers. I've got a prosthetic one. So when it comes to other insect foes, they will either fly or run. I've wandered here, I've wandered there, but now we get to the mating part. I will leave it up to you to go and watch some videos on YouTube.
I don't really have this written down, but I just kind of wanted to share kind of a story because I have the more spoken word type of style of poetry anyway. So I had an ex-girlfriend and I gave her all the love. I'd brush her hair, I'd help bathe her, I would go to work with her, help her with her small business. I nurtured the hell out of her. I did everything I possibly could, financially, physically, in every. And then I got turned into the villain. It's really unfortunate, as I cherished her. I cherish anyone I love. And that has changed how every relationship I've been in, the trauma of what somebody can cause you, even if they weren't physically abusive. The mental and emotional stuff you go through sticks with you for so long. And a lot of people don't see it. A lot of people don't think that they're worth it. But I decided to be an example to all my friends that were in toxic and abusive relationships. And I decided to end things, even though it was the longest relationship I had been in. I knew that it wasn't good for me, it wasn't good for my mental health. Financially, I was putting out all my money, and she never put any money towards anything. After we broke up, she went and posted very personal content of personal videos we made together, posted them publicly on her public story for everyone to see after we broke up. That can be considered revenge porn, just so you know, like that's a criminal offense. So that's just something to be careful of. And I just want you all to know that you don't have to put up with abuse and any form of abuse. Even if you don't think it's abuse, even if you blame yourself, abusers, narcissists, they turn everything from inwards of themselves towards you. They reflect their own behavior and insecurities on you. And every other person I've loved, you could even go back and see all the posts that they made saying how they never had such good love, like that I was the most genuine love. They're still up there, which doesn't add up to me. How can you say that I was the most genuine, pure love that you'd ever felt? And get giddy when you talk about me or the stuffed animal I got you. I don't know how that works when you're now saying that I was an abuser and that I was some monster or villain in your story. But there are two sides to every story, and I respect that. So everyone can go and share their things. I just am not at a point in my life where I'm putting up with people spreading lies. I want to spread the truth. That's all that I'm about, is truth, love, positive energy, good vibes, good energy, and that's all I try to share. That's why I write poetry, is that's how I let things out. Also, another thing I think is super important is, like, before poems for all of you, if you are saying about certain things, to maybe put a trigger warning, because some things can really affect people negatively. Sorry, I meant to put a little trigger warning, like if any of you have dealt with abuse and stuff, but trying to hurry. But anyways, I just wanted to put out there that anyone can believe who they choose to believe, but I know the truth. The truth is out in the universe. And my two beautiful partners know the truth of how much I love them, and I would never hurt a single hair on their head. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick introduction. I think I've thought this part through more than my poem, but my name is Vivian, and I'm here because I have what's called DID, or dissociative identity disorder. So some of you may see my face and recognize me as someone you know, and you've never met me before, but this poem is just an expression of the smallest piece of our journey. Picture the void, beginning free and endless. This is not space, nor is it time, but the boundless frame of the human mind. A place where all can be made and anything lost. All-powerful creation, never listing cost. Where is the mind? Is it truly contained? Can all that power fit in a human brain? Who I am and what can be, ever growing, sometimes knowing, imagination, fabrication, all abound in what I call me. Journey with me, explore this sacred ground, see the stages where the changes of life's growth are found. A little boy with only one thing to be, just happy, same as you or me. Guiding stars gave counsel of the holy form to take, the only form to take, man, strong and holy, for their reputation's sake. Stars stopped guiding with light, but struck with rage and shame through the clouded storm of night, and to the boy laid the blame. What was broad and spectrumed, chiseled down to a single slit, forced into that tiny hole to which their key should fit. That endless void we once perused, now filled with shards, cracked and bruised. These shards gained faces, hopes, ideals, and wants, then show unbidden in places, like some unholy haunts. Some too scared to stand in the light, others ruthlessly bold, made to stand and fight. Throughout the years, many were added to the mind's menagerie, some filled with tears, others impervious naturally. Preserved in patience as time ticked past, each major struggle adding to this legion vast. To count them now would mark too late, for once their pieces numbered 38. An army of specters running amok, sometimes seen as weakness, others passed off as luck. The stars had said, just you and one, your chosen lady, can make you whole, our son. But when darkness held sway and threatened to destroy, kindness reached back through time to save our little boy. Doing for him what we could not do, tell him it's safe to be more than two. Into the dark of that boundless frame, he sought us out and gave each a name. You are not broken, truth's voice did speak. This army is yours to help you reach the peak. So many go through life singularly prepared to face alone what they encounter there. With each step, now you may find those you've made to keep your mind. Company in the endless dark, who know the path to heal your heart. So when the stars fail to light the way, just look inside. We together will get through the day.
So I have a poem called A Letter Written in Love and Pain, Appreciation for Sweet Tea. If I'm looking for recovery, I need vulnerability. Allow sensitivity to sit in the driver's seat and take me to where I need to be. So the letters I write and the words I speak shall only come through honestly. So I can truthfully say I'm in pain, as all of what we are. The pain somehow looks different to me now than how it did before. Yet every time it comes, it feels the same. Every cell in my body can remember and explain the feeling I get when it comes back. I would die for one of her hugs, where she would hold me as close as she could. She would never let me go. A place where I can let myself cry. Let the tears blocked by my fear go. But my love, just so you know, there's memories laced through my brain, and honestly, it feels impossible to allow them to escape. I wish all this would fade away. I had space to breathe without silent heartache. Live a day through rain, sunshine, or snow without feeling a personal kind of cold. It seems my wounds have been stitched poorly with dirty string and loose seams. The threads were left forgotten and the scars remain unseen. I try to find ways to hide from this pain. Find a path through big smiles on my face and a goofy style, but today, that wasn't enough. Because does a smile change a thing if I don't feel it? Does faking my strength through this process deal with it? My style will never offer me health if I can't stay true to myself. If I remain the same, this path is not a path, but rather breathlessly sprinting in place. So I realize that I have to change. If I remain the same, this fake umbrella will melt away, and the rain will spit and drip onto my painted face. The mask I wear will fade, and those I love will see all the broken pieces of my undiagnosed pain. So I began to embrace every scrape upon my spirit and every graze upon my soul. Deep down I know this change comes slow, like a blooming of a scarlet rose. In order for me to grow, I need to show those I love, care about, and know what I'm going through. And behold, Pandora's box has been tampering my soul. Bugs, snakes, and spiders lay blanketed and asleep within each layer of my sheets. This box doesn't contain treasure or gold. Rather, bones and ghosts exist inside who live to steal, kill, and destroy every piece of purity within me from my head to my toes. If this box remains undiagnosed, I know my heart and soul will slowly turn cold. Only love will bring that warm ocean breeze which blows away that falling frozen snow in my cryogenic sea. Love is warm. Love is soothing. Love is the medication I need to release me from the chains that bond me to this unforgiving pain. So I like to believe God has given me a warm mug filled with your sweet, steep tea, boiled with leaves made of respect, love, and loyalty. Its steam glitters in sunlight and releases an energy which leaves behind a trail of light and beauty. This cup fits in the shape of my hand so perfectly. Its scent gives me a feeling so heavenly. It's meant to clean the bacteria between my teeth and sweep the dirt from my unshaven cheeks. It's a cup from which I drink, which allows my mind to rest in a place of peaceful dreams. It shall restore my integrity, relieve me from those memories of pain, hate, and deceit. She shall teach me to be the best I can possibly be, and guide me to lead the life of which I dream. I hope she falls in love with the way I love her, the way I hold her, the poems I write, the songs I sing, the things I do to demonstrate how my heart shines for her. I hope she will love me through my pain, trauma, and grief as it washes away by her warm touch, her kind ways, and the soothing words she speaks. I hope she makes the decision to stay, to create a life journey with me, dedicated to growing a garden full of bliss and beauty. I hope she loves me through my ugly, that she loves me through my painful process they call recovery. I hope she holds me close to her heart. Through every rainy day, every stormy night, I hope every second that we are apart, our love will still shine as bright as the moon and the stars, living in harmony with the aliens in the dark. If she can do this, I will keep my promise. With all my might, all my strength, I will give her my love for the rest of my life. And maybe one big day, some lucky woman shall be claimed as my wife.
All right, I think I'm going to do this one first. I'm not sure of the title, but it's my thoughts on the nature of existence. The meaning of existence is more than mere logical... Let's do that again. Okay, the meaning of existence is more than the mere logical persistence of consequent arrangements, or more than the count words eeny, meeny, miny, mo, easy come, easy go. In the limit of distension, is there really any flow, dysmorphic forms generated? We're the sum total of our potentials, so if there is any if there is ever any unrealized of those, then in this regard we are not fully existent, or at least not yet. With each lost potential, preferential or consequential, we have faded partially out of existence. But just as each old potential is closed, new ones unfold in limitless invention. But what is actual is limited to what is expressed from moment to moment, shifting as it does in the being of becoming something else. The something else still latent in its inevitability postponed, save outside intervention. But what is outside? Does reality really observe the conceptual lines of its own demarcation, Can its nature really lie in its own ideation? If nature is unconscious, then the dreams of eternity must still unfold as she sleeps. To wake her from her slumbering would betray all consequence relations. If the concept of nature is lifted from life, then does this not imply that we at least metaphorically see the universe as alive? Seriously, what are we thinking? To see such nomenclature as in keeping with non-teleological characterizations. Therefore, full existence is either impossible or a realization of different potentials, perhaps at some meta level. But a second-order actualization is a first-order potential. And does that make any sense to say that existence is itself ephemeral? Should existence not be the most elemental of any of the characterizations of real? One can't deny that this would imply that the existence is more akin to a verb than a noun, especially since, as we have established, a core property of existence is that it fades in and out. Then perhaps it is not a matter of what, but how the particles of eternity fade in and out. It is not the article that is genuine, but its position in the sequence as part of a following relation. If an existence is then an idealized sequence, then for those to which meaning means existence can only be a life well lived, but perhaps not ironically, existence might be more conceptual than ontological, and its domain rightfully actually is Plato's heaven, or some anagogal dimension betraying intention as delineating what is real, but the means by which we grapple with we can be conceptual, whatever that is. But then significance is never the significant itself, so perhaps the best way to understand existence is semiotically. But then a life well lived is nothing more than a story well told. Perhaps the steps don't even matter, but only the way they unfold. Is it breaking with convention or the way that it upholds? I guess we'll never know. If we are the dreams of eternity, are they pleasant or are they nightmarish hell? But if nature is unconscious, then our dreams are as well, with insidious ascriptions in every story we tell. Every tale is in the telling, and the vocalization of every spell also dispels what blooms out and what withers. Is it for anyone to tell, or is it instead in the hearing that existence casts its spell, where some smart-ass interpretation and renders nil? Thanks, existentialism, for that distorted prism which makes light is, for its own neologism is that hypostatization or equivocation. If existence is potential and its meaning is a life well lived, does evil not exist then, or must there be a negative potentials as well? Does it even make sense to distinguish in absolute terms what we can be given in relative ones? If potential is a gradient, then is existence as well? Does that mean we need to transfinite count words in these determinations? What then would lawless, irrational complement of existence even mean? If its meaning is circular, does that imply it is also a circular lack of meaning, where neither the sign that is significant, nor the word, nor the thing that can be given for the lack of determination can be indetermination without prior determination, or is that only the kind where it is? Being that is necessary to have some kind of terms and couch with, but then why would we have such a simple thing to turn out so metalinguistically? What is the difference between existence and persistence? Why do we ask the meaning of existence and not persistence when there is no means by which to distinguish what exists, what must persist? But is there a minimum window? However, what ceases to exist fails to persist, which undermines our thesis for anything that comes to nothing would then have existed, for its lack of persistence, calling into question this exegesis. Perhaps then, if persistence is a requirement to exist, but the actual and possible time frames persist, split the existence that is context and not the attribute of content. The context that is being defined as a span of what persists, it's continually consisting of the evolution of the span as context, trade place to define continuity, so circularity defined, existence and persistence coincide, overlaid in the handspan of forever palm to palm. But the circularity of the concept is not evidence for its path of independence, so not just any path will do, and perhaps this is why the nature of existence is so easily misconstrued. Incidentally, the lack of path independence implies the sum over all potentials is a non-zero for some paths, in which case we can say that potentials are good or bad, then there exist paths which maximize both of those. This is why, along with all the devastation, there must have been hope in Pandora's box. That did not rhyme at all. Okay. If we were to overlay all of the lines of existence for each and every existent, would it fill the entire space? Is it a determinate shape, or the surface expanding to infinity? In which case, must there not be a transfinite number of ways? In either case, and this is just the means, we have an infinity of possible existence. This would seem to be a consequence of the continuity of existence. Does this mean existence is differentiable? If nothing else, we would hope it is distinguishable. But distinguish is the opposite of continuity. So any differences that can be differentiated, and if there are any, existence must be differentiable. Continuity and existence then follows from the differentiability and is therefore more than conceptually necessary. If we could only get beyond the circularity, but if we choose only the non-cyclic paths, then as partially overlapped contexts must, in networks of persistence, to resolve ordering discrepancies. Perhaps each sequence is a perspective, and there is a continuity of sequences, and as we have established, there must be that. By their differentiability, for what use is it to say that all that exists is differentiation of the same thing and thus belie the difference essential to each existent thing, denying what it is and hence its existence, but differentiability requires that circularity. Either that or limitless persistence. Can this be a disjoint function with only finite discontinuities, or do we need some adjustments to our theory? And sorry, that was my variant of logical, there's a hole in the bucket, Liza, of the universe.
Hey, everybody. What a wonderful night. Yes! This poem is called How to Write a Poem. Writing a poem is about locating self. Every facet within what you're about to create blooms from your consciousness, your subconsciousness, your ego, your mind, your heart. But where are those elements planted? Where are they rooted? They are rooted within your ethnocentric illusions, your lived reality, your privilege, your pleasure, your pain, your abilities, your disabilities, your socioeconomic status, have and or have not, your fluency, your empathy, your sense of humor, your vice, and your storytelling devices. Now, we've got some roots. What are we going to grow? Let's begin by observing, using our senses. Maybe let's use our eyes. Consider the reality of how we see and sense the world is different for each and every one of us. Everything is tempered by the lens we use, which is informed through the roots of our synapses, which empirically flow from the subjective ground on which we stand. And what does this have to do with poetry? What you describe in your poem is an interpretation of what you see and feel. Interesting poetry comes when there is exploring to do. It is a poet's imperative to explore the edges, out past the boundaries of the visual and audible spectrum. If we were fish poets, would we write poetry about water? I like to toy with my teenagers on occasion, so I asked my son the other day what his worldview was, and I've been enjoying the vacuous silence ever since. To be fair, I've been asking myself the same question for many years, and this might have been the inciting incident leading me to storytelling. I know that this poem is oblique. Apologies if you're looking for something acute. As we began this journey together, it was stated that writing a poem is about locating self. Can you describe your context? Let me attempt to describe mine. Here I am on the stage in this ocean of air at the Owl Acoustic Lounge on a Wednesday night in May, popping air with rhythm, nuance, and a certain je ne sais quoi. Although this poem is not objectively true, let me attempt to share that this poem blooms from my developing cosmology, from the overtures of my overself, from the undercurrents of the monomyth, from my loins and through my groans of intercession. This poem blooms from oblivion, threading through philosophy to worldview and into a budding cosmology. For myself, worldview fell away when I found cosmology while reconnecting with the night sky. That night sky took me places while grounding me concurrently in inner spaces, where locating self flows into metacognitive health, and that is something to write about.
Okay. So this poem is kind of, I guess, how people can weaponize something really good to do really bad things to you, if that makes sense. People are attracted to my kindness, but little do they know it's just common human decency, misconceived the meaning of the human being. They're not seeing the divinity of love, the forgiveness of Creator, and the sacredness of life. My strife with this attraction is it's filling me with terror, horror at the thought of what someone could do to me. Are you going to rape me if I talk to you gently? Grope me? Hold me? Filling me with rage, unwanted sexual contact because of a kind smile. Just wanted to show you were worthwhile, not of my body, but of my respect. But now, you reject, can't even respect my dignity, the divinity of my person stained with vengeful sentiments. The sins that I've seen traumatized me. Spitefully, I will maintain my innocence and live with kindness.
Thank you guys for sharing your poems tonight. My name's Kale, by the way. Last name's Fox-Zacharias, but no problem, no problem. Give me a second here. I told my sister, keep on trudging through the trenches. I told my sister, stay protected. Don't end up like how our cousins or our friends did. I told my sister, keep some perspective. That we love her, and if I recognized her, that I would have said something. I've seen your soul, how can I forget your face? She told me she tried to OD last week. I guess that's what happens when a soul leaves its body. I can relate to the feeling, but how do I explain it to my niece? That's not a drug, that's a disease. And that's not an addict, that's an angel. This ain't a poem, this is painful. Step into your power, please, I beg you. It's a long road ahead of you and an even further one behind. You've come so far, young soldier. That war you fought is over. I'm by your side, down and out or up and over. Lead us to new heights, down inside, up or sober. I love you, sister. Step into your power, because this ain't a poem. This is painful. Thank you.
All right. We have 24 poets tonight. That is awesome, guys. I'm going to keep it short and just read one poem so we can keep moving on. I wrote this not too long ago, and it was partly inspired by one of my young co-workers who's a very supportive, loving young kid, and a lot of my friends. It's called Holding Space. One of the hardest things to see, okay, cut. Let's start again. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Holding space. One of the hardest things is to see someone suffer and not being able to stop their suffering, not being able to offer and think of solutions, and watching them hurt, suffer, and sense their pain. You may feel hopeless, devastated, and useless because your tendencies are to be there for them and to help. But on the end of the day, it is not your journey, not your battle, and not your pain to feel. It is theirs. You know what you can do? Be there for them. Give them your undivided attention, your listening ears, your understanding words, your caring, loving heart, and your presence will be a blessing and a healing. And this, my dear friend, is how you hold space. Thank you, my dear ones, who hold space for me. Your presence, your kindness, and your good intentions make a big difference in my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you.